Hi, everyone. Hope everyone's having a great Wednesday so far. My name is Sarah Fairclough, and I'm the Business Administrator for our Platform Solutions team at SmartSimple. Today, Mark's going to be going over the July 2020 upgrade in a bit more depth. Just a couple housekeeping items before we get started. We'd love to hear your questions, so please feel free to post throughout. Mark just won't be answering them until the end of the webinar. As well, we are recording this webinar. You will be sent a copy, and it will also be posted on our SmartSimple YouTube page within the next week. And now I'm going to pass it over to my host, Mark.
Thank you for the introduction, Sarah. I'm Mark, the UI lead here at SmartSimple. I've been doing this for almost a decade, and I'm going to walk through what you can expect in this upgrade. This is the July 2020 upgrade, and I'm using wiki.smartsimple.com as my frame of reference. So I'm going to go through in a little more detail about what's in here, how does it look, how is it configured. As Sarah said, if you have questions, just put them in, and at the end, I will go through each question and answer it. That way everyone can hear everything, and those who need to drop off can drop off at that point. All right, so let me start down. All the dates of when servers are getting upgraded is here. If you haven't already taken a look at it, it's 6 minutes this time, but there's an upgrade highlight video here made by yours truly, and it's a good overview of kind of what's in here. So if someone doesn't have the time to attend this webinar, they can at least watch that video and get the highlights in about 6 minutes of some of the really big things that are going to happen. Without further ado, I'm going to start with the global system upgrades. These are things that are going to automatically happen. And I'll talk about the things we can opt into after this. All right, so first off is the downloads page. So we had two plugins that used to be available right here on the downloads page. Those have now been deprecated. So we've removed those links. So you won't see that anymore. Also, the password protected custom field has also been deprecated. So if you have one, you'll still be able to continue using it. But for security reasons, we don't want people making these anymore and preferably not using them anymore. So the first big UI change is previously we used to have this options menu, and there's a whole bunch of things in this option menu. And so if I went into a record, so here I'm in a UTA, I'm going to go to the level 1. And what you'll see after the upgrade is that we've separated it out. Instead of having one menu that has options with a whole bunch of things in there, we've done something more like Gmail or like Word, where you have your actions menu, and each of these menus holds things that are of a specific purpose. So like new, all my things for creating new will be there. Very small discrete actions will be under actions. Larger tools such as configuration mode are going to be under tools, and then your audits and your histories and things will all be under this last one. So it's separated it out. So if you're looking for configuration settings after the upgrade, it's tools, configuration mode. I know I'm in there all the time, so I just want to make sure you know that that's where that will be. If you're using the currency standard field, especially for currency exchanges, I'll just show you that. So here I've got a currency field, and you'll notice if I do that we've added a search so you can easily find what you want. We've also sorted alphabetically now. It used to have USD at the top, I believe, followed by Canadian dollar. So we've sorted that, and we've also added 98 more currencies. Now that the stored values are going to stay the same, but it's the display values that has changed here. So you can see now we're listing the code and the name, and it's sorted alphabetically, so we're not giving preferential treatment to any one currency. If you're a Smart Folder Manager, which is a permission, previously you always had permission to edit all the folders if you have that permission as Smart Folder Manager, but you didn't always get to see it. So we've corrected that, and now if you have the permission to edit a folder, you'll have permission to be able to view it. So if you've never seen our Smart Folders, maybe I should have backed up there. Smart Folders. Basically, this is kind of like a Dropbox or something similar to that, where I can create folders and I can put my files in there. Maybe it's a help file, maybe it's something I want people to reference, and they can come in here and they can see my, they can see your files. And of course, if you click on this gear here, you can set permissioning around who can see this. But if you give someone the the Smart Folder Manager permission, then they'll be able to edit and view all folders. So just be aware in case you have someone who had that role and there was something you didn't want them to see. All right, the next major thing is, this is really for your super users, maybe system administrators, people that are in the system all the time. So we've added a way to control the display density of your screen. So typically for most users, they're going to come in, they want to see something like this where it's nice and comfortable. You got lots of space, the text is relatively big. You know, as an applicant or something like that, you're going to want to see that. But if you're a super user and you're here every single day, then you may want to see more information on screen. Some people like me, they're okay with that. And so for those people, if you go to your user menu here and we go to personal settings, you'll see that there is a display setting, and it's this brand new setting here called display density. If you click on this screenshot here, I can see the difference what's going to happen. So you'll actually able to see almost twice as many records per screen as you would have normally. So all I do is I change it to compact, I hit save. It's going to reload my screen because we have to reload. So you don't want to do this when you're in the middle of something. Wait till you've saved whatever work you have. But then you can see here, I can see a lot more records. And it's not only the list views, but also on the object page itself. Again, I can see a lot more content in here. The text is a bit smaller, just a bit, but mostly the padding has been reduced. The inputs have been reduced to give you a lot more information on screen. So that's a cool setting. It's really easy to turn on, turn off. And it's a personal setting. It's only going to affect you. It doesn't affect everybody. So if you are comfortable with more information on screen and smaller text, you can turn that on. If you're not, just leave it the way it is. All right. If you are using the display image custom fields, previously when you called that field, it would usually return a thumbnail, which is a really tiny, like say 6 pixel or 10 pixel image by 10 pixels instead of returning the full image, because people can upload really big images. But it would be a very small image. Typically it would be used in maybe a report or something like that, where you have something small and you just want to see the look of it. After the upgrade, we've got a new syntax for calling the thumbnail. And instead what we're going to do is we're going to return the full image. So you could always get the full size image, but after the upgrade now, we've got a new syntax to call that thumbnail. So if you really want that thumbnail, then you can call that thumbnail specifically. Otherwise, you may get the bigger image. So you just want to check, because your document might be a little larger if you were expecting a thumbnail and you got the full image. And if you have questions, just stick them in the chat. We'll go through it all at the end. Sarah's really good about reading them out, and I do my best to answer. Configuration lock. So anyone who's never used the configuration lock, let's say you have multiple system admins and you're in a system. Under global settings, under security, there's this thing called system configuration lock. So what I can do here is I can actually lock the system down. And what that means is any other system admin comes in and they try and edit a custom field, they're not going to get the save button and they're not going to be able to modify it. All right. So as long as the system is locked, you'll get a little message that says system's locked, can't modify anything. And so if I'm doing a big set of testing and I don't want to change anything on me while I'm doing it, I might lock the system. And the way it looks is I say lock, I'm going to put in my password and some type of comment. I confirm it will lock the system in about 5 minutes. And then when I want to make changes again, any of the system administrators can come in and they can unlock it and they can put a message in. So at least it's not meant to stop everyone, but it's meant to say, hey, look, we're in like a testing phase or something like that. We don't want any changes right now. And so if they're going to change it, you've got a record of them saying, I'm going to come in and change it. And they know that they're supposed to wait. Maybe they should contact you before they do that. So previously it was this whole page was a little different. It worked a little differently, where you had one password only one person could unlock it. But now your system admin can use their password to do that. The control for access control for edit consumer association custom fields. So yeah, previously I believe you had to have 2 permissions to do this, and now as long as you have edit permission, you can do that. There's another place where we actually restricted, I'll get to that in a second, but first let's talk about passwords. So the password, we really kind of revamped the whole password page. Let me take a look at this and show you. So I'm going to global settings, I'm going to go back to security again, and it is password and activation policies. So we did a number of things on this page. We've added the left navigation and separated things out, so that way I can see the different areas a little better. It's a little nicely organized. One of the big things we did here is we added this, changed the way the complexity default works. So if you pick default complexity after the upgrade, and if you save it, you can have these toggles instead of what was there before, which is a very complex and hard to read thing and hard to set up. So I can say, I want only numbers and special characters, or only uppercase and, or you can pick that, or I can pick, 2 of the 3 or something like that. I've got all these settings, which is really easy. I just toggle it on and I save it. And then what happens is once you've saved it, you can test the complexity as well. And when users fill it in now, so if I said like SmartSimple, and I need a number and a special character, right? So I get these nice check marks here for my users to kind of help me create a strong password. So that's a nicer experience, I would think, for your users than the old methodology. So to get that view, you turn on the default and you have to save. One other thing to note is that we used to allow 6 character limit. Now the minimum is 8. So if you do save it, you have to, passwords have to be at least 8 characters. That's just for added security. We're all about making sure things are secure for you. One other thing while I'm on this page that we also did, a lot of times people would put SS logic into the different emails and messages, but we actually have translation up here. So I'll just show you that again. At the top, this funny looking thing with an A and another character here, this is the translation button. So if I click on that, I can actually go in and fill in translations for a lot of different things from my different languages that I want to support. Okay, so a whole bunch of changes there on passwords. So if you come in and you want to change your passwords or your password policy, as soon as you click save, these things will kick in. If you don't do anything, then everything will stay the way it is. But I kind of highly like the new interface of entering things. So personally, I would turn on default and try it out. But that's totally optional, up to you guys. I know we talked about deprecating the classic interface, and probably a lot of clients have never even seen that now. With the classic interface, we still had a button that let you kind of keep it, and after this upgrade, that button is gone. So hopefully everyone has already moved over to Arcadia, but after the upgrade, you'll no longer have that option of kind of switching parts of it back into classic. And then we go to the portal configuration. So I think last upgrade we talked about in our portals how we could do a search here. Well, we've made it even easier than searching. If I wanted to edit something very specific in a portal, I'm just going to open up a portal. So here I'm going to preview this portal, and we add this button here called configuration mode. So I actually have a configuration mode, much like we have when you're in the system. I got a configuration mode for my portals. So if I click configuration mode on and I come up here, I can see here's my different main menu links, and I can click the gear, and then I can be right in here and editing that main menu link. I don't have to go and find it. I don't have to figure out what role this is on. So instead of searching, I can just click on an asset. Now, if I go to one of these places, so for example here, again, you can see there's the gear. So if I wanted to edit this section, I just click that gear, and again, I got everything I want to modify. I can see my shortcuts are in there. I can do my display. Everything I need to modify for that section is there. Now, if I go into one of the pre-built templates, for those of you who are the adopters on this, who are starting to use this, we've modified the way the inline text works on this. So for example, this is a template with some inline text. I can just click this button to start editing it, I change it, and then I hit save, and I can change text in that way if I'm using the new templates. So configuration mode, gear to edit the sections that you can see. And if you use the templates, we've revised the way the inline editing works. So that's a lot of things to really help you out in that area. We already talked about the password pages and the translations. But speaking of translations, if you're working on list views, let me just open up a list view here. So here's my list view, and I'm going to edit this list view. And one of the things we did is here's my columns. But previously, if you wanted to put translations in for these columns, for example, and I click the translation button, this is where I would pick. So maybe I want to do Spanish, or maybe I want to do a different one. Let's say I don't know, let's do Czech, sure. One of the things we added in this time is we've added in what the English value is, because previously you couldn't see that. So we put this placeholder text. I can just type over it with whatever I want, but we put placeholder text in there just to kind of give you a sense of what you're translating, because it wasn't visible. And we've done that in a lot of areas in the system. So that's just to help out all of our friends who are doing translations. Here's another one that I think is near and dear to my heart. So we've got this thing we call the hierarchical navigation bar. I know it's a really a big word, but I'm just going to refer to it as a navigation bar. So we always had something like this on the objects, but if you were configuring something, it wasn't always obvious where you were and what you were doing. So let me come into configuration settings again. I'm going to go to my UTA level 1, which in this case is a grant. And I'm going to go to the custom field. Now, I could have went to anywhere, but you can see this is a configuration page. And now it's showing me where I am in the system, and it's going to give me a path to places where I might frequently want to go. So if I go into a custom field, so here I am in a custom field, and maybe I make some edits here, and now I want to go back to another custom field in that list. So you can see right here, it says, oh, I'm on the amount requested custom field. And then here's the grants custom field. So I go there and I go my list of all my grants. So I can just move to the next one, or go to a different grant in that one, or maybe even go to a different category of grants. But what I can also do now, and the nice thing about this is it's all over the system. You can see the same thing. So it's really easy and consistent on how you can get places. So sure, if I want to go back to the list I came from about custom fields, I click that. But what if I want to go to the main UTA? Well, I can just click on settings. And here I am, and now I can go to activities or anything else related to that UTA. And if I really want to, maybe I want to test it with my work, I can just hit Submission Manager, and it brings me to the actual list. So it'll just give me this easy way to navigate to the places you're going to go most frequently. So that's on configuration pages. We've added that navigation bar. Some of the pre-built reports, I know when every system comes with a set of reports. Some of those have been built in the older styles, and we've deprecated those reports. So if you find that there's a report you still need that was there, maybe give support a call, and we can make sure we set up a newer version of that report for you. But you'll notice that some of those pre-built reports have now been gone to kind of clear up space. And but we can always add more in there if you find those are things you need. Cool. So if anyone who's been at the recent Elevates or even a lot of the sessions, you've probably seen me or Eric or somebody show you the Excel parser. In this upgrade, we've added a word parser. And so if you haven't seen it, I'm just going to do a 5-minute show and tell on how the parser works. Okay, so here's, let me just jump to the word one. So essentially, here, a client would come in, and this is you'll use Word to populate your application, essentially. So a client would come in and they would download a Word template. When they download the Word template, they would get something like this, and they would just fill it in as they see fit with whatever information they wanted. I'll show you this. So you get something like this, where I filled one in. Once I've filled it in, then I come down to this file upload field. I click the file upload field. I would upload that file. The file will be saved here. And then when I hit save, all the data gets populated. So you can use this to populate different custom fields in your application, or you could use it to create level 2s like milestones or activities or things related to the application. And what you do is you map the things that you want to populate, but you can ask for other information in there. This Word document stays in here, and so you can read through it later, but maybe only pull out the information that you need. And let me show you how I did it, just so you have an understanding. And I'll show you on this document too. All right, first of all, in Word, I enabled the developer tab on here. It's a tab that's just kind of hidden for most people, but I believe everyone has access to it. And you can add these inputs. So for example, in design mode here. I got these inputs and I gave them a name, and then whatever the person types into it, you can lock the rest of it down, is what gets populated. And I gave these guys names like goal, reality, etc. So if I look into my my upload multiple file storage field, you can see I've enabled word parsing on this as opposed to Excel parsing. And then what I did in here is I just put my mapping. So this is whatever the field name I want to send the data to, and then this is the tag name on the input in the Word document is right here. So I just do it like that, and that will populate the information in the level 1. The only thing that's a little different is for that my table, instead of calling the tables by a name, you just call it table_1, table_2, etc. So it'll just find the first table in the Word document and it'll put it into table 1. The second table will go into table 2, etc. Now, I didn't set up the activities, but for those who want to see it, this is the way you would set up the activity, which is exactly the same as the Excel parser. And actually, why don't I just let you see that for a second? So if I come into the wiki and I do Excel parser, you can see here's an Excel parser article that explains how that is done. So I'm not going to go too deep into that, but just know that if you wanted, you could have people fill in their application in Word offline, maybe to divide amongst themselves. When they're finished with it, come in and upload it, and you could populate a lot of your fields, if not most of them. So that was it for the major things that are going to happen right away. Some of the minor ones, personal dashboards. So for anyone who's never used that, I'm just going to turn this off. I come into my user menu and I say dashboards, and here I've got personal dashboards. It's almost like a portal page of my own. I can build these really easily. I just say new, and I add whatever cards I want on here with whatever information I want. Previously, you always had to use a system list view. After this upgrade, you can use your own personal list views. So now I can make my own list views and I can populate these cards the way I want for my own dashboard. The only caveat is if I use a personal list view, then I can't share that dashboard with other people because they won't have access to my personal list view. But that's kind of cool now that you can really personalize your own dashboards exactly the way you want with your own personal list views. Also from the personal list views, you can now bulk download files. If you've never seen that before, basically if I have a list, I can say, grab me all the files that attach to all these applications and download them in one big zip file. So that is a list view option, and you can now do that from personal list views as well. Last upgrade, we heard from a lot of people that system generated emails, they're in diverse places within the system. So like workflows are in one area, my new user emails in another area. So one of the things we did to try and make that easier for everyone was we made this communications tab and we added the system emails list view. And we added a bunch of list emails in there. After this upgrade, we've added a whole bunch more. So again, what we're trying to do is centralize. They're still staying in those other places. So if you want to go to the workflow and look at the email, that's fine. But we're trying to bring all the emails to one place so that I can easily search them and modify them. So for example, sign up pages, here's a workflow. And if you haven't seen it before, we come in and it's just kind of giving you just the email itself. But of course, if you want, you can say, oh, I want to view the whole task, and you can do that. You can still jump to that area of the system to see all of the settings. But yeah, it's a quick way to see and edit all these emails. Also, a lot of emails that didn't have before now got the rich text as an option. So typically you're either using plain text or you're using the rich text or HTML to send these out. And so we've added that to a lot of places to make that easier. For notification broadcasts, they're the things that show up underneath this bell here. Just go into the notification broadcast. If I'm creating a new notification broadcast, one of the things we've added is the ability to use user system filters. So that's a new option there. The only thing to know about this is that this is an and. So they have to have the role you specified and the user system filter. So you might want to either use just roles or use the system filters. But if you're going to use both, it is an and, not an or. So it's just something to be aware of. You can control the display color for types and statuses on your consumer provider list views. Batch updates. Batch updates are a very powerful tool. So if I'm on a list view, I can pick several records at once, let's say, and I can batch update. I can change some value or do something with these records, move them into another status or something like that. One of the things we've added in this upgrade is I can do something with, for example, I can do standard fields. So let's say all of these things had a specific start or end date. I can modify that end date. I can extend that end date in batch to a whole bunch of applications, or I can move out that start date or something for as needed. So that's a nice addition for people who are changing some standard fields like that on records, because I know that comes up a fair bit. Let's go talk about shortcuts. There's a whole bunch of changes with shortcuts in this upgrade. So again, I'm going to jump into a portal. I know I'm kind of jumping around a bit, but bear with me. So here I'm in a portal, and I got my shortcut section. The first thing about shortcuts is we've added the ability to reorder the shortcuts in a section. So previously you would have a display order where I would set up a number, and then based on that display order, shortcuts would show up on screen. Well, after this upgrade, we now have the ability to reorder shortcuts and control where they appear in each section. So if I had 3 shortcuts, A, B, and C, I can put those A, B, and C in section 1. And then in section 2, I can have those same shortcuts, but put them in a different order. Like I have C, B, A. So that's a new thing that we've done. If I go looking at the shortcuts themselves, here's a shortcut. Some other things we did in here was you can now have shortcuts to a section very easily. So let's say I've built a section in the portal, and I want a shortcut to take me somewhere else. I don't want them to go up here to the main menu. Maybe I want them to do this one thing right now at this place. I can easily do that. I can pick a section and then pick which section I want them to go to from here. Another thing we did, because it wasn't always obvious, is we've added this new area, associated sections. And what this means is any sections that I'm using a shortcut in, or I've implicitly picked a shortcut and said, I'm going to use it here, it will now show up here. So, if I was going to delete this, I might want to check first to make sure it's not being specifically used. Now, if you have never defined what shortcuts are appearing in each section, you're showing all, it's not going to show up here. But if you've picked it in a shortcut section, then you'll see it listed here. So that gives you an indication of where that shortcut is being used. While I'm in here, I want to show you something else. Oops, not where I wanted to go. All right. Something else we've done here is we've added a new create new button. So if I had, say, an image shortcut or a shortcut to a list view, it wasn't very easy to add that new button. So if I want to show a list of grant applications, we've added a really easy way to for the person to create a new grant application right off that list view from a shortcut. So again, you just toggle this on and pick the default status, the default type I want, and they'll get a button on their list view. Let me show you how that looks. 1 second here. Let's go portal, preview the portal. Okay, so we'll look at these shortcuts again. All right, so here's my shortcut of the boy. If I click this, it's bringing me to the list view. And because I said new, if I have permission, I get the new button. So right from this list view, which is coming off that shortcut, it's not actually going to a portal section. It's not going to the full UTA. It's just going to the list view I've asked for. And if I have permission, I can now create new right from here, right from the shortcut. So that's kind of a nice, another new setting for everybody. So let's go to smart cards. Now, if you've never used a smart card before, let me open one of these guys up. Smart cards are something I really love. I use this with my team all the time. Maybe I'm going to a meeting, maybe I have things I want people to action. And these items I want them to action have nothing in common other than I need them to action it today, or people I need to call today, or maybe it's something for a meeting. And so I can go in and I can create a card like this. And I can, just that one, I can dock it. And then in my meeting, I can walk through these different tickets and action it as I need. So even if I have assigned out tickets to maybe one of my staff or something like that, let's just go and look at this right now. So one of the things we added, I'm going to open up one of these records. Let's say this one. All right, and I want to add this to a smart card. So right up here, I've got the star. I say, okay, I'm going to add this to the smart card, and I'm going to add it to John's smart card. And if I do that, you can see I now have a count. So we've added that count now to smart cards, so I can see if I'm distributing things to somebody. I can easily see how many how many applications or users or organizations are in that smart card that I'm sending off to someone to share with. If you create a lot of types and statuses, we've added the ability to copy them. So there's a new save as on those. So you don't have to create everything from scratch again. I can say, well, I like the status, but I want another status that's very similar. I'm just going to change the items on it. Again, we've added that new save as, so you can make copies. We've also added a workflow task to update smart version IDs. So if you've never used smart versioning, what this really allows is I can have, let's say, an application for this year, and then one for next year, one for the year after. And everyone who's in that cohort, for lack of a better term, or everyone who's using that year's application, even if it lasts a long time, they can stay having that application look exactly the way it looked at the time they started filling it in. And then when the next call opens up, I can modify those questions, and it doesn't affect people in the current stream. I can add questions, I can remove questions, I can modify things about those questions. So that's how kind of versioning works. And now via workflow, if you need to, you can move people from one version to another. The notes panel. It's been a long time since we gave notes any love. Let me go to a different record, maybe this one. One more. Otherwise, I'll just talk to it. There you go. All right. So typically when you came to notes before, it was always sorted one way. After this upgrade, we give you the option now. Do I want to see the newest first to see what's the latest, or do I want to read through from the very history so I can start the oldest to newest? So you've now got that option for your notes, so you can see it the way you'd like. There is a new setting to opt. It's a personal setting to opt out of system-generated emails. So sometimes, depending on how your workflow emails were set up, for example, someone may still receive emails when they didn't really want to receive them. So we've added in, under personal settings, privacy, we've added this new setting called opt out of all system emails. And what that's going to do is, let's say you've got a workflow email that's set and I'm in the to address. The system is going to block that email before it gets sent out. So you're not sent this email if you decide you didn't want to receive the email from me anymore. It won't stop all emails. So if there's a direct email, someone's emailing me directly from a group email, those will still go out. But the system ones through workflows, that kind of email except the password email will get blocked. Now, when it blocks that email, it's going to block everyone on that email. So the email just will not be sent if I've turned this on as a personal setting. Not everyone may have this personal settings, but there's a setting for that, and that setting visibility has been fixed now as well. So that's the settings for the visibility of that are right there. If you ever want to restrict people from not being able to see that. All right. So that was the things that are going to happen automatically. Let's talk about the things that you have to opt into. The first one, which is near and dear to me, because I know there's been multiple people have had conversations with me, especially some of my friends in Dublin, but even in the US as well. We now have control over the colors of the different series in your chart. So this is for list view charts. So you'll see those in the portals. You'll also see those in the dashboards. So I'm going to show you it on the dashboard here. I'm going to switch to a different dashboard. So here I've got a dashboard, and it's a simple one. So I've only picked 4 things. But what I did is I said, I want North America to always be blue. So previously, there was a preset of colors, and those colors would go left to right, and they would always go in the same order. After this upgrade on list view charts, not report charts, but list view charts, you can control the colors. So the way that's done is I come in here and it says customize chart colors. So this is a new setting, and I can just pick whatever data I want in here. And I pick a hexadecimal color with the color picker, and then I save. And when I do that, I can pick any color I want for any series I want, but you have to use the series name and pick your color. So that way you can consistently see when the same data appears on multiple charts on the same page, you can ensure that it always looks the same color and the legends will be the same. Oh, I was talking about this a little earlier before I stopped. When you're picking people like owner on standard fields for associating, we now have a permission to restrict that. So I can say, oh, I don't want certain people to show up in that list under owner. Yeah, in other standard fields. So that's a new permission setting. And then back to our forms. So you may have seen this earlier when I opened up this form to show you the MS Word parser. One of the things I had, well, let me step back a second. So a few years ago, I was seeing a lot of people having a lot of tabs up here. So these are all tabs, and sometimes a lot of tabs can cause a usability issue for people. So now people are more used to scrolling vertically on your phones. Scrolling up and down it's much more natural than going left to right. And so we're seeing a lot more people now are switching from having lots of tabs to having just a couple tabs and very long forms. So to help with all those people having our long forms, again, we've added a new title bar. It's called a title bar pane over here on the right. So what this does is I've got multiple sections because now that I'm having less tabs, I have a much longer form. I have these different sections, but you can see I've got this title bar called Create Level 2, one called Populate, one called MS Word. Now the nice thing is what we did is if you turn this on, there's an opt-in, you get to see all those title bars here. So when I'm on this tab, I see the title bars here. And if I click this, I can jump just to that section and fill it in, as opposed to jumping between tabs and tabs and tabs. I can do that. What's also nice is if I scroll up and down, you can see it also highlights over here. So this is a nice way. And if I don't want it, I can always hide it. But this is a nice way to be able to jump between title bars to navigate around and see where you're going. Especially on longer forms, which are much more popular now. Let me show you how I turn that on. So I'm going to go to Global Settings, and I'm going to go Branding, and right here you can see it says Enable Title Bar Navigation Pane. So the one thing to note about this is it's kind of an all or nothing. You either turn on the title bar navigation and you get it for your level 1s, your level 2s, your level 3s, your organizations, and your users, or you don't turn it on. But I personally, I quite like it. So you might want to try that one out. Something else we've done is we've added a new form completion indicator. So let me show you how that one works. So let's imagine I'm an applicant, I'm coming in, I'm filling in my form for the first time. Maybe I want to see that indicator to show me how much progress I've made. So I'm going to start by turning it on because I don't have it on. Now this one's unlike the title bar navigation. This one's robustly configurable over who can see it and where they can see it. So I'm going to turn it on for my level 1, which in this case happens to be a grant, and it's right down here. It says form completion indicator, but I could put that on for the user or the organization profile, or I could do it just for level 2s or just for level 3s. Oh, actually, I put it on already. All right, so system administrator. All right, let me do it again anyway. I just wasn't in that. So I want to I pick what roles, who's going to see it. I can pick what types of this level 1 are going to see it, and what statuses are going to see it. I save it. And now when I go back to Submission Manager and I find an application that's in draft, and here it goes. So now I can see by tab. So each tab, it shows me this tab has all these fields, and all these fields are filled in. So it says 100%. Now it's not showing me, this isn't validating the fields. So it's just showing me whether they've been filled in or not. but it gives you an indication of per tab. Okay, I've filled in everything here. I've filled in everything here. I haven't done this tab at all. This one I partially did. So it kind of gives you an idea of tab by tab, what I've filled in and what I haven't filled in. But then I've also got up here a total completed. Now, the way the scoring works on this is each tab tells you what's on that tab. But this total completed basically adds up all the fields that I could fill in and shows me that as a percentage. So if I had 10 fields that could be filled in and half of them are filled in, it's going to show me at 50 here, regardless of what each tab says, because these could be distributed different ways. Now, the other thing to note is that if you want, you can weight certain tabs more. So if I wanted, let's say I had 2 tabs here, one had 5 in it and the second tab had 5 in it, then the way it gets calculated is 5 fields plus 5 fields divided by 10 would give me my percentage. Now, if I want, I can weight a tab differently. So I'll show you how that works. If I weight this tab and I come down here, you can see there's a weight. So by default, the weight is 1. If I clear that out, it'll tell you the default is 1. But if I change that to 2 and we go back to my scenario where tab 1 had 5 fields, tab 2 had 5 fields, but if I weighted tab 1 as 2, then that would count as 10 fields. So it would be 10 plus 5 divided by 15. So I can essentially double the weight of the fields you can fill in. So hopefully I didn't confuse everybody even more. But anyway, a form completion is really kind of nice if maybe the first time you're filling in an application, but then once it's filled in, you might want to hide it again. With the advanced data tables, let me go into the advanced data table. So if you've never used an advanced data table before, this is an alternative to using the Excel parser for budgets. You come in and you can fill things in. The first one here is static, where I can put some static information in. This one's a static one as well for revenues, expenses. But down here below, this is what we call a dynamic version of an advanced data table, where someone can hit the plus button and they can type in whatever they want. So, item 1, sure, it's going to have $1 on it, and they can save it. So one of the things we did for these dynamic advanced data tables is we added the ability to do a duplicate check, because what we were finding is that sometimes someone would come in and maybe it's salaries and they put salaries in, but they put that line item in twice. So what I could do is I can check to make sure that they didn't repeat the same name here and the same value here. And I'll show you how it's done. So I'm going to open up this special advanced data table. We used to call these XMLs. And I'm going to go into the section builder. So this is where I had my sections. And we talked about it's just the dynamic ones, so the ones that aren't preset. So I open this up, and here's the table that I'd created. And if I scroll down here, you can see we've got an enable duplicate check. So if you turn that on for this column, then if someone enters the same value in this column in 2 places, because they duplicated up their items, it'll warn them and say, okay, don't do that. And what you can also do is I can put on other columns as well, and then it becomes an and. So it's if this column and this column has the same value in 2 different rows, it'll throw a warning and tell them, hey, you've entered something twice. Actually, while I'm there, sorry, I should have showed you this while I was here. While I'm here, you'll now also see that you can do translations inside the sections of an advanced data table. Previously, people would use SS Logic for this, but now you can do it right here. I can pick this out and I can fill it in as I desire for those cells and these details. Speaking of language translations, then, anyone who's been with us for a long time knows that when I started, we always did a different setup page for each language. However, after this upgrade, let me go to setup pages. So I'm looking at a user setup page here, but you could look at organization. And when I open these up, you can now see we've added a translation button up here. So I can translate this into different languages. And So I have one sign up page now instead of multiple sign up pages, translated into different languages. And when I view it, let me just accept the policy I've set up here. I get this drop down automatically, so I can just switch between them to other languages as I need. So that's a very cool enhancement there. Invitations, if you've never used invitations, they've been extended to level 3s. Let me show you invitations. So invitations, for those who aren't familiar, let's say I'm filling in an application, but I want someone to review this. I want someone to review this for me. So I want to invite them to contribute to this application. Typically, I would go here. I can put an email in. I can send them this email, and they'll say, hey, do you want to be a part of this? They can either confirm, or maybe they're going to decline because they have a conflict of interest, and then they can come in and they can contribute as part of this application and somehow in the process. So that's now been extended to level 3s as well. But also, one of the things we did is you can now surface those invitations in the linked record list. So a linked record list, for those who don't know, is I can surface things like just the contacts or organizations or things like that right here in the application. So someone doesn't have to come here and click this left menu, because some people like to hide the left menu, or maybe they just want it because it flows better right in line in the page itself. So you can do that. So I can come here and I can add my invitations through here. I can invite them through here if I have permission, and I can see it right here in line in my application without having to go here in the left navigation. And that is the linked record list. I'll just open it up to show you how that works. So it's a special linked record list. And then I just picked invitations as my type. I could have done contacts, organization, or activities. And you can do this on the level 1, 2, or 3. Speaking of adding things to other areas of the system, the quick assignment. So if you haven't used that before, the button looks like this. All right. So whoops. So let's say I want to do some quick assignment. What quick assignment is done for, let's say I've got, again, I want to be able to assign some reviewers to an application. It's a good use case. So I can say, okay, these applications I know need reviewers, and I want these people to review them, and I will give them the role reviewer. And then I hit continue. And now it asks me, okay, what do you want to do? Do I want to assign each of these people to each of these as a reviewer, or do I just want to assign one person to each as a reviewer? And I hit assign, and then those people are now assigned to those records. So we've always had this ability, but after this upgrade, you can do that from the level 2 and the level 3 records. So it was previously it was on the level 1s, but now you can do that from the level 2s and 3s. And you can also, I believe you can do it from portals as well, but don't quote me on that one. Oh, and while we're in there, the list views that are used here, because you can see I can select list views, you also have the ability to restrict what list views are used here or what shows up. We have 2 new integrations for our publications. So if you're someone who uses PubMed, and we now have Scopus and Web of Science. I don't have that set up currently, but you can always call support if you want some help getting that set up. As services for which to see publications or attach publications as part of your research granting. So some other minor updates. Again, we talked about you can control who's showing up in the lookups a little better. We have added a new minimum setting for the file uploads. So you could always previously say, when someone uploads, so I'm going to upload a file here. So you could always set a maximum number of files. So I'm filling an application, and maybe I want 3 pieces of identification or verification of identification, and only 3. So I've always been able to say, you know, what my maximum amount of files I want someone to upload. And I can even mark this as mandatory, and that way they have to upload 1. But now we've added this minimum, so I can say, you know, when it comes to pieces of ID, I want 3 pieces of ID minimum, but 5 pieces of ID maximum. So that's a new setting here for minimum number of files that you want to have included in this instead of using a smart check to kind of check for that with validation. So here's my login page. It's a fine login page. I have no problems with this. What this is using is it's using the default template. So we never had a default template for this. We always had a sample template that you could insert, and then people would modify that if they chose to. But then the problem becomes that over time, we might make adjustments to the template to make it a little better, make something work a little nicer. And you never got those. You'd have to manually go in, update the sample template to get it. So now, after this upgrade, if I go to branding again on login pages, I'll open it up. Here we've got, this is the login page, and I'm using the new page layout. We called it default. So if I did custom, I had the template like I wanted to before, and I can customize this as I see fit. But if I use default, then I don't have to ever see HTML at all, and it'll always get updated if the system gets an update. I can still control everything. So for example, if I click on login, I can see this is where my login text goes. This is where my welcome text goes. And I can change it as I see fit, and I can save. I can even choose to show or hide the privacy policies on the login page, as some people want to see that and some people don't. So anyway, this is something you may want to try and turn on, and then you can kind of set it and forget it. You can just modify your text without having to dig into the HTML at all. You never even have to see the HTML. So we have a thing called the primary contact, and the setting would turn on primary contact. And that's typically used for, let's say, I want to know if I'm going to send emails about your system or something. I want to know who to funnel those emails to. Previously, the way it worked was you could always turn it on for a specific user, or off for a specific user, but it was typically, it would always get set to the first user who registered. Well, sometimes maybe you have an applicant who registers, but you don't want them to be the primary contact. Instead, you wanted maybe the first executive to sign up, or the first financial person to sign up. So now you can restrict it and say, okay, the first person in a specific role to sign up will get that primary contact. So that's something you can now do instead of always giving it to the first person to sign up. And back into portals, we added this ability, you can see it here, to set a date range to a single input. Now it's only available in portals, but if you're doing something like volunteering, or you're doing, it's a short event, whoops, wrong one, I want portals. But sometimes it's nice to be able to enter that in a single input. So let me go into, I think I had it here, search. Yeah. All right, so here's the new input, how it works. So basically I can say, oh, I want to see stuff between this date and this date, or I want to sign up something between these dates. This is only available in the portals, in a section in the search, but it gives you a way of searching between a small date that's relatively close together. So let me show you how I did that. I'm going to turn on the new configuration mode for portals. And I'm going to open up this section. And here I can see it's a section. It's a system list view. And I turned on show the search panel. And when I was in there, I picked the start date field. And instead of doing on or before, or on or after, and having two fields to fill in, I picked date range. And once you do that, then now you can pick the start and end date through one single input. And that's for your search in portals. Oh, so let's say you've got a call closing. Typically, if you set up a workflow to trigger something, it was always set to a static value, right? Well, now you can pick a custom field, such as a date or time field, and you can use that dynamic value from there to control that workflow. So there's a new option there. Again, I don't have that set up either, but you can try that out or give support a call, and they can help you set that up. So that's really cool, because sometimes your start date or end date might move a little bit, and you don't want to have to go back and rework all those workflows. Configuration folders, when we talked about that earlier, they now have the ability we showed you the smart folders. Configuration folders are very similar, but they now also have the ability to trigger workflows, just like your smart folders do. And with Stripe, previously all the payments were always level 2s. So now there's an ability to just create a level 1 and automatically create a level 2 instead of having to create the level 1 and 2 together. So that's a new enhancement for Stripe. All right, there's a few other things for admins here, which I'm not going to go over because I know this was a much bigger upgrade than usual. Instead, I'd rather open up the floor and see what questions people have. Sarah, you standing by with the questions?
That was great. Thanks, Mark.
Right.
So first question, if we move an item in the smart folder to a different folder, does it change the web HTML code?
Yeah, for sure. So if I go in the smart folders, and let's say I go to this, this was the Excel parser one I was showing you. Actually, there's the word parser one. So what I believe you're talking about here is when I say view URL, it shows me this is the path to that item. So if I copy and paste it in here, I can see it just opened it up, but that was there's my document. So let me close that down again. So the path is very specific and it points to the folders. So here's the folders that it goes to. So if you take that out of one folder and put it into another folder, yeah, it won't find that document anymore.
Great. Is there any way that we users can change the menu back to the way it was before? You know how it's like new actions, tools, logs. Is there a way to configure it to go back to the previous?
To have options?
Display? Yeah.
Not to my knowledge. Unfortunately, that it is now on options is the way it is. I could, whoever that is, maybe they want to contact support and maybe we can figure out what the use case is for returning it. But yeah, right now there's no ability.
Okay. System administrators, by default, they're always SmartFold managers.
Yes, I believe so. These system administrators are always have the ability, I believe. I'd have to test it to be sure, but I think system administrators always had access to everything. But other roles can get that permission and then they can also manage that as well.
Great. Has the complexity test been translated into French?
Complexity test.
They also had, would it be possible to introduce different policies for different users groups based on roles? I don't know if that.
Oh, are we talking about privacy policies?
I believe so.
So you want to just repeat the question again? I'm not sure if I caught it.
Has the complexity test been translated into French? And would it be possible to introduce different policies for different user groups based on role? Oh, sorry, somebody added, it might be the password complexity.
Oh, password complexity. Ah, sorry, there we go. Yes, that makes more sense now.
If the user was talking about something else, please just let us know or feel free to email us, but we're going to assume it's for the password complexity.
All right, so the question was password complexity based on roles. I'm not aware of it. I think it's one password complexity for everyone, I believe. I don't think you can set that based on role. However, you can have roles with like two-factor authentication or something like that, or you can have added complexity on top for your internal users. Like, for example, internally here, I use two-factor authentication. So when I log in, I have not only my password and my username, but I also have an app on my phone, which is an authentication app, where I have to enter in a time-sensitive code as well. So I know everyone here at SmartSimple does that for all of our access. So yeah, to my knowledge, you wouldn't set a different password complexity by role, but you may add on another asset like that. And the translations are right here for this. So you can, it should all be translated. If it's not, just again, contact support if you find something that's not translated, and we can look at that.
Great. What is a user system filter?
That's a really good question. I actually haven't set one up, so I'd have to. If you just give a call into support, we'll get you a really good answer for that. But unfortunately, there are some things that I haven't actually set up. So my apologies on that one. Just to give support a call, and we'll give you a good answer for that.
What standard fields are available for batch update?
Right now, I've only seen start and end date as the only standard fields, but I assume we'll be adding more over time. If there's something very specific you need, again, I just give support a call, and we'll get that set up and see how that works with the new enhancement process.
Great. For reordering shortcuts, is there an easy way to restore these to pre-upgrade layouts?
Oh, there is. I bet what you're referring to is there was a bug that's going to be fixed tomorrow night. Whereas, I'll show it to you. I didn't really want to bring it up, but you got to know this. So it's being fixed really soon. If I go to portals, if you reorder the shortcuts, let me show you. Let's do shortcuts. So if you reorder this is a set of shortcuts on website. And so if you reorder these, you can see here I got shortcut style. You should be seeing the shortcut style. If you don't see it, you'll see it Thursday night. And as soon as you set that to the right one and you hit save, those shortcuts will look the way they did previous to the upgrade. This setting was getting lost there. It's a known bug that's getting fixed. We already have a fix for it. We're just deploying it on Thursday. It's just in testing right now. So I wouldn't worry about that. If you see the shortcuts, the rendering of them looked a little different. That's what the problem was, and it will be fixed Thursday night.
Will the personal setting email work if we are deactivating an account and prevent them from getting future emails from workflows?
Yeah, it should prevent any workflow email that has that person, the to address. It will prevent them from getting that email. So yeah, it should. It will prevent them from getting workflow emails.
Great. How often are the currency
exchange? Actually, one second before you go on there. So one of the things that what triggered me there was someone said deactivating the user. Because one of the things that we talked about, I don't know if I've talked about it with people, but if you have a user, let's say that doesn't want to receive, doesn't want to receive any emails, or they want their personal information purged. I don't want to go into too deep, but there is a methodology within the system to overwrite that data. So you don't actually you don't really delete that user ever. You can actually insert new data over top, where it's like this data has been removed or this data has been deleted. So you keep all your records and everything intact. I'm not going to go into how that works, but because that's a whole nother webinar. If you really don't want people to receive those emails, you can use something like that to purge all their personal information as well. Anyway, go on.
Great. How often are the currency exchange rates updated?
Oh, here, let me show you. Let me show you how that works. That's a really good question. All right, so here I am, and I'm using let me set this up again. So let me do USD, let me do Euro. All right, and I'm going to save it. And once I've saved it, I can see here that is the exchange rate as of this time. Now, at any point I want, I can just hit this and it will update the rate again. And so I can keep hitting that, and I can update it whenever I want. And then I can just resave it again once I'm done. All right, so that rate will update whenever you update it. So it's a manual refresh for that update. It happens the first time you select it. It takes whatever that is at that time, and then if you want to change it, you change it like that. And just in case anyone wasn't sure how I set this up, this is a standard field currency. Oops. Sorry, this is the standard field currency, and I enabled currency exchange on it. That's how I set that up.
How would I enable personal settings?
So personal settings are right here, and let's see, personal settings. Oops, not that one. it's, I have a link into it in here. Let's see. There you go. So it's under system visibility permissions, user logic, and hide settings. So if we go, let's see if I can, global settings, system visibility, right? System visibility permissions, and then it'd be user logic. It's hidden down there, and now it's called the settings menu, hide settings menu. So you can set your logic here to hide this for specific roles or specific people, or show it, I guess, for specific people or specific roles. So that's where it is set down here. And there's a big description on how to set that up.
Great. When you introduce new system level language that is automatically displayed to users or sent to users, is that automatically available in French, or can you specify what language?
Any new system text, it gets translated every upgrade. I believe we translate it into French, I believe Spanish, and a couple others, but I can't, I know there's 2 or 3 language we automatically translated into. Offhand, I'm not sure exactly which ones those are, but if you're seeing something that isn't translated, you can always feel free to just give a support a call and let us know if we miss something somewhere, and we'll get on it.
Great. If you change the password policy, does that affect users that previously had a 6-character password?
Yeah, if you change it, it will if they try and create a new password. If you can change it, but not enforce it right away. So your existing users, let me go in here. Sorry. So if I go in here, so here it is. So I can change this and I can save it, and all my existing users won't have to create a new password right away. I can force them to create a new password, but if I don't force them, then everyone's passwords will still be the way they are. But when they go to change it, they'll have to use the new settings. So your existing ones should not be affected, but anyone who creates a new password going forward would be affected if you save it. And that's if you save this at all on this page or making the changes on this page, it'll take on the new way with 8 characters instead of 6.
Great. Are we able to review the jump to section on the application and how users can enable this?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I know I went a bit quick. Thank you guys for staying with me. So here I am. So the way it works first is if I'm using, I have to use tabs, and then I create. So this is a tab. Let me show you that. So first off, I have to have a tab. All right. So it's layout tab section is my field type, and then I need to have title bars underneath that tab. So this is the layout title bar, which is a different custom field. And so if I have a tab with title bars underneath it, then they will show up here. Now to get this to show up on the right, I go to global settings, and it's branding, because we're trying to put a lot of the visual settings into branding now. And it's this setting right here under interface options, enable title bar navigation pane. So if you turn that on, and there's a description here to help you out, basically all my level 1, 2, 3 users and organizations will get that title bar pane right there, where you can jump between things. I like just jumping between things. Hopefully that answers your question.
How is this percentage calculated? So I'm assuming it's the same idea when we have non-mandatory fields.
Yeah, it doesn't take into effect mandatory and non-mandatory. This is the first version of it, so we may refine it from here. But let me open one up that was in draft so you can see it again. I'm always worried whether I explain too much or not enough with these. So yeah, what it does is any field that has to be filled in, or is fillable will be counted, and it doesn't take into effect mandatory or not, whether it's required or not required, or mandatory, not mandatory. It doesn't take that into effect. It just takes the sheer number of fields and says, okay, this one has been filled in or not filled in to calculate this total up here. And same with on the tabs. Each tab is calculated on its own based on whatever is in that tab. Is it filled in or not filled in?
Does this upgrade allow for advanced data table XML fields to be mandatory? Currently, a budget table can be incomplete, and there is no way to check that.
Oh, well, I know you can use Smart Check to check this for the advanced data tables, but because you can set up in Smart Check to check for the values, make sure they've populated specific values, and do that as validation and not let them proceed. You can have them not submit their application until they've filled it all in. So that is entirely doable. Now, can we make this mandatory? I don't think there's an easy way, but I could be wrong on this one. I could be very wrong on this one, that there might be an easy way of doing it. Let's just see. Because you do have the appear mandatory, so you can make it look like it's mandatory, but I think you have to use Smart Check right now. So without investigating further, I would say you can make it mandatory so they can't submit until it's filled in and filled in the way you want, but I think you have to use Smart Check for it, the Smart Check validation. But again, that might be a good question for co-op support, and they can give you a little more time. They can investigate it, and they can pull me in if needed. We'll sort that one out. So my suggestion is right now, I don't think it is an easy way to make it mandatory, but I do know you can make it mandatory through Smart Check validation.
Okay. Can you reiterate where the completion bar weighting is?
Yeah, sure. Okay. All right. So let's imagine I only had 2 tabs here. One has 5 questions and the second one has 5 questions. So the way the total completion weighting is 5 plus 5 divided by 10. And that would give me my completion. So if one's filled in, it'll be 10%. If two's filled in, it'll be 20%, etc. here, right? Now, if I do the weighting on the actual tab, and instead of using each field worth 1, I can set each field to worth 2 or some other number. If I did 2, then it's going to be worth twice the weight. So those 5 fields are now counted as if they were 10 fields. And it would be therefore 10 plus 5 divided by 15 to get my percentage.
That's currently all the new questions that we have. So if anybody does have any further questions, please feel free to reach out to support@smartsimple.com. They can connect with you and answer any further questions, maybe specifically to your system. And like I said earlier, we will be sending out a recording of the webinar to your emails within a week. So if you want to review anything, please feel free.
And I'd like to thank everyone for spending some time with me today. It was really nice to have everybody here, and I'm loving to see these turnouts. We've had probably well over 100 people between the 2 webinars this time. So thank you very much for spending your time with us, and have a great day.
Thank you so much, everyone. Talk to you soon.